There are moments in life when everything stands still. Dreams paused, progress delayed, and time seemingly wasted. In these silences, many wonder if the universe has forgotten them. But what if the delay was not absence, but alignment? An invisible clock ticking in silence, waiting for the perfect second when everything would finally move. Divine timing doesn't follow human calendars. It ignores deadlines, dismisses urgency, and listens only to vibration. The higher order of the universe responds not to pressure, but to preparation. Just because you don't see movement doesn't mean it isn't already in motion. In the unseen, God arranges what the eye cannot perceive. Joseph Murphy taught that the subconscious mind is always listening, and God operates through it. This means that even when you're unaware, your thoughts, your energy, and your quiet longings are sending signals. The divine clock begins not when the world notices you, but when your inner world matches the frequency of what you've asked for. When that resonance is reached, the hand of time becomes the hand of God. And in a moment that appears ordinary, the extraordinary erupts. Not gradually, but all at once. Everything longed for, everything delayed, now flows like a flood released. Not because time was lost, but because it was being redeemed in silence. And so, when the divine decides to move, it doesn't walk. It rushes. Life rearranges. Doors open without knocking. You won't need to chase what's yours. It will arrive faster than explanation allows. The invisible clock strikes, and destiny answers, not late, but perfectly on time. Long before the breakthrough, there's a frequency that begins to hum within you. It's not loud. It doesn't announce itself, but it shifts everything. This is vibrational alignment, the soul's quiet agreement with the future it once feared had forgotten it. You begin to feel different, without knowing why. Things no longer hurt the same. Longings soften into trust. Joseph Murphy often described the subconscious as a fertile ground. Whatever we impress upon it with emotion and repetition becomes reality, but not instantly. The soil doesn't reject the seed. It simply waits for the right conditions. And so does the universe. Vibrational alignment is the moment the inner climate becomes ready for rain. You may not even recognize it when it begins. You'll call it peace, or detachment, or stillness. But what it really is arrival. Your outer world hasn't changed yet, but the inner world has shifted into harmony with what you asked for. It's the calm before the convergence. The body doesn't know it, but the soul does. And the soul never forgets what it's destined for. In this phase, people may leave, opportunities may dissolve. What you thought was meant to stay begins to fade. It's not rejection, it's refinement. The old vibrations no longer match the frequency you're stepping into. It's not loss, it's clearing. Making space for what's truly aligned with your new internal resonance. When alignment occurs, you don't need to fight for anything anymore. The right people feel drawn. The right moments feel natural. Life stops resisting you because you've stopped resisting yourself. It's subtle, but powerful. And this quiet transformation is always the precursor to sudden movement. Because nothing external can shift until your vibration does. Belief isn't just a mental concept, it's the architecture of reality. Long before anything manifests in the physical, it must first be allowed in the invisible. This is where faith steps in, not as hope, but as conviction. Joseph Murphy emphasized that your subconscious accepts whatever idea you deeply believe, and from that acceptance, it begins to build. Many people say they believe, but they also doubt. They affirm abundance while fearing lack. They speak healing, but expect pain. The subconscious, however, doesn't respond to what you say, it responds to what you feel is true. And so, when belief becomes pure, unshaken, and emotionally backed, the universe has no choice but to mirror it. This is not positive thinking, it's spiritual authority. Faith isn't pretending something is real. It's knowing that the unseen is more powerful than the seen. That knowing vibrates through every layer of your being. It informs your actions, your posture, your energy. You stop negotiating with fear because belief has taken its place. When your belief changes, your vibration changes. And when your vibration changes, your reality follows. It might not happen instantly, but it begins to bend. Circumstances adjust. People respond differently. And what was once impossible starts becoming natural. You're no longer forcing outcomes. You're allowing them. The moment belief takes root at a deep level, reality starts to shift. First, subtly, then visibly. And when divine compensation enters the picture, it's your belief that acts as the gateway. Not belief in struggle or delay or loss, but belief in divine order, restoration, and limitless flow. That's when life responds as if it had only been waiting for your permission to bloom. It happens when you least expect it, not because it wasn't coming, but because you finally stopped chasing and started aligning. One day, the silence breaks. The stillness gives way. What felt like years of waiting collapses into a moment. And in that moment, everything changes. The doors you once knocked on open by themselves. The blessings arrive without force. This is the avalanche of manifestation. Not a slow drip, not a polite arrival, but a flood, an overflow, a sudden orchestration of events that makes logic irrelevant. Joseph Murphy often spoke about the subconscious bringing forth results by ways you do not know. This is what he meant. It moves beyond planning, beyond prediction. It comes through the path of least resistance. People will call it luck. They won't see the nights you surrendered, the inner work you did in silence, the battles you fought without noise. They'll only see the explosion of progress and wonder how it all happened so quickly. But you'll know it didn't happen fast. It happened exactly when it was ready, exactly when you were ready. Manifestation doesn't follow man-made timelines. When divine timing aligns with vibrational readiness, the results come in waves. You'll receive what you thought you lost, and more. Not as compensation in the human sense, but as spiritual completion. The universe was never withholding. It was waiting for the moment when the ground inside you could hold the magnitude of what was always meant for you. And once it starts, you don't control it, you trust it. You ride the wave, you stay present. You remain grounded in gratitude. Because when God decides to restore, it doesn't feel fair, it feels overwhelming. Everything you once thought you missed returns transformed. And you realize the delay wasn't denial, it was design. There is a sacred intelligence behind every delay, every detour, every season that seemed silent. In the realm of the spirit, nothing is wasted, not even your waiting. What felt like loss was actually layering. What seemed like failure was quiet formation. The universe remembers what you thought was forgotten, and when the unfolding begins, even your past begins to transform. Joseph Murphy often reminded us that the subconscious mind records every impression, every desire, every belief. But beyond the mind, there is a deeper memory, spiritual memory. It does not keep track of time the way humans do. It stores energy, intention, readiness. And when the time comes, it draws from the reservoir of your unseen preparation. That heartbreak you endured, it strengthened your compassion. The closed doors, they refined your direction. The seasons of silence, they cultivated your inner voice. All of it, though painful, was not without purpose. And when manifestation comes, it brings not only the blessing, but the meaning behind the waiting. This is why restoration feels so powerful. It doesn't just give you what you wanted. It brings healing to the path you took to get there. Divine compensation is not just about receiving more. It's about redeeming everything you thought was lost along the way. The people who left, the opportunities that passed, the dreams you buried. Suddenly, none of it feels wasted. Because when the divine timeline activates, your past begins to make sense. Not through logic, but through purpose. What once felt like empty time becomes sacred space. You see how life was never still. It was preparing you in ways you couldn't have imagined. And that realization itself becomes part of the miracle. Joseph Murphy didn't just teach about the mind. He revealed it as a sacred bridge between the visible and the invisible. To him, the subconscious wasn't a storage space for memories, but a divine channel, an inner altar where the seeds of thought meet the power of God. And what is impressed upon it with belief becomes form, without fail. He taught that the subconscious doesn't argue, it doesn't reason, it accepts what it's given, especially when wrapped in emotion and repetition. That's why fear often manifests just as powerfully as faith. The subconscious, in Murphy's words, is like fertile soil. It will grow whatever you plant. So the question is never, is it working? But rather, what am I giving it to work with? This is where many go blind in their own lives. They affirm abundance, but dwell in lack. They speak love, but expect rejection. The divine cannot override the vibrations you insist upon daily. But once you shift internally, once belief is married to expectancy, the subconscious begins its silent, unstoppable process, not by magic, but by law. Joseph Murphy believed that God works through law, specifically the law of belief and vibration. That means miracles are not accidents. They're responses. And your subconscious is the channel through which divine intention becomes human experience. The greater your faith in this channel, the more purely it flows. So when everything starts happening at once, it's not coincidence, it's culmination. Your subconscious was never idle. It was receiving, processing, and aligning. When God decides to move, the subconscious is already prepared. The soil is rich, the seed is ready, and what blooms is not only divine, it's inevitable. There is a divine mystery hidden in the present moment. What we call now is not just a sliver of time, it's a gateway, a sacred access point through which the infinite compresses years into seconds. When you align with the now, you don't just live, you redeem. Time that once felt wasted begins to fold into favor, and acceleration begins. Many believe they've lost too much, too many chances, too many years, too many mistakes. But the divine doesn't measure time the way humans do. It measures readiness. Joseph Murphy spoke of the subconscious as timeless. It knows no past or future, only the dominant belief of the present. This means that the moment you believe it's possible, it becomes possible. When you stop grieving what didn't happen and begin aligning with what is unfolding, a shift occurs. Opportunities find you faster. Solutions appear without struggle. There's a compression of effort, a collapsing of delay. You begin to experience what others call breakthrough. But in truth, it's simply the result of returning to the present with faith. This is how lost time becomes acceleration. Not because the past is rewritten, but because the present becomes so aligned, so focused, so powerful, that it makes up for everything that seemed wasted. What once took years begins to take weeks. What once drained you now energizes you. Life no longer resists. You've synchronized with its rhythm. In this state, Action becomes inspired. Choices feel natural. You're no longer reacting to the past or fearing the future. You're creating from the center of your power. And from that center, divine compensation begins. Not in fragments, but in overflow. You realize that nothing was ever truly lost. It was simply being gathered for a moment such as this. When the wave of divine compensation finally recedes, what remains is not chaos, it's clarity. You look around and see a new life forming, not as a reward, but as a reflection. You're no longer waiting, no longer grasping. You've become the version of yourself that life was always trying to bring forward. The storm didn't destroy you, it revealed you. There's a whisper that follows such breakthroughs. It's not loud or dramatic. It's quiet, sacred. It says, "You made it." And deeper still, you were never alone. All the silence, all the waiting, all the prayers you thought went unanswered were, in truth, being echoed back to you, in perfect timing, in perfect sequence. Joseph Murphy spoke of the peace that comes when your subconscious is in harmony with divine order. This peace is not passive, it's powerful. It's the kind that doesn't need to explain itself, the kind that allows you to walk into rooms differently, speak with calm certainty, and trust what's ahead, even if it's still unclear. Because once the compensation arrives, you're no longer the same. You don't beg the universe, you collaborate with it. You speak with authority, because you've seen what happens when alignment meets timing. You no longer need to be convinced. You carry the evidence in your own life, in your own transformation. And so, you move forward. Not rushing, not resisting, but flowing. You live each day as a continuation of the miracle. Not everything will be easy, but everything will now feel guided. Because once you've seen how the divine moves, you'll never doubt the silence again. You'll know the whisper always comes after the storm, and it always carries the truth.